The brothers wisp. The brothers wisp, brothers wisp. The brothers wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the Brothers
Hey
Wisp.
everybody,
Let's take
this
a
is
ride
Greg
through
with the
space
Brothers
on
Wisp,
this
number
mothership.
88. Again, I'm here in Texas, College Station. Today with me, the little icon up in the right corner, it's Tomas. Where are you at, Tomas?
Hello everyone, and I am now back in Slovakia.
Oh, he's not American anymore.
Yeah.
He will be soon again, though. I have a feeling.
Hey man, I really like coming back to the US. Anytime I can get back, it's great. I like it.
For sure. Well, I mean, you did some time here. And by some time, I mean he was in the penitentiary for a little while, so...
Yeah, it was rough there, a little while, the teenage years and yeah.
The formidable years, the important ones. Well, while I've got you, one of the things I had on the list is that Unimus is pretty awesome. So I know I'm a little late to the game, really running it in production. But I have to tell you, I got my Unimus installed and running in like 10 minutes. It was pretty ridiculous. It was so simple. It was almost too easy. I figured I did something wrong, but apparently I didn't. And it's immediately backing up stuff with all the magical features. But what I really liked is the mass configuration push. We were very quickly able to identify so many routers that we hadn't properly configured for firewalling and things like that, stuff that had slipped between the cracks, as it were. We ended up realizing how many Mikrotiks we have, which is about, I don't know, I think we've got about 60 or 70 in production. And so, there was no kind of centralized configuration storage where we were really reviewing all these things in a simple manner before, unfortunately. And now that we're doing that, we're starting to find all these holes in there, and looking forward to do kind of a mass configuration update very soon on all of those, because I found some that have some very old features on there that really shouldn't be as old as they are. I mean, they're kind of off in these weird side spots in the network, so I guess it's probably not too big a deal. There's not like a lot of end user access or anything like that, so it's probably okay. But I just thought it was pretty killer. I wanted to throw that out there, that I'm having great success right out of the box with it, really enjoying it. And I'm so glad you added Telnet, because we have some old stuff that still does Telnet as much as you resisted it.
Yeah, well, I did not want to add Telnet into Unimus, but we very quickly understood that it was something that needed to be there. So despite my, unwillingness at first, it's definitely useful. Well, and it is actually useful, right? So, but it's funny with these things. Like you say, you find Mikrotiks that are super old and or have things that they shouldn't have. But it's like the great saying, right? There is no temporary solutions. Anything that you put in, temporary becomes permanent. There is no temporary.
Yeah, for sure. And something else I noticed, whenever you're pushing configuration changes to Mikrotik, sometimes if it's a duplicate entry, it'll fail. So on some of that stuff, like on the firewall list for address lists, I started adding in kind of the management subnets one at a time, because I didn't want to go through and figure out which ones had the updated list and which ones didn't. So I just selected all of them and just kind of started adding it one line at a time. So if it failed, it was because it was a duplicate entry. I didn't care. I just went through the list. So.
One little tip there. There is a try-catch block in RouterOS, which, well, admittedly, if you have really old versions, it will not be in the router scripting language. But for the newer RouterOS versions, you have a try-catch block, so you can do like try and then put in your block. And if it's a duplicate, if it fails, you just do catch, and in catch, you just don't care. You just continue adding your entries.
Very cool. I'll Google that and add it to my toolbox. I like that. Let's see. What else? This week, I was doing a little research on PCI compliance. Is that something you guys have to deal with?
So luckily, no. We use external payment gateways, and we don't keep any data which would fall under PCI. So luckily, we don't have to deal with PCI.
Gotcha. So that's usually PCI compliance is right? If you're like storing people's credit card information and you're processing that on a regular basis, you're using an external service. So those jokers have to do all the PCI compliance and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But there are some organizations that do end up storing that stuff. And so they have to go through some PCI compliance in various ways. I know in one point we had to do it for a little bit, and how we did it was we subscribed to an external service, and what they do is you have to go this thing through, it's called a SAQ, and so it's like this online questionnaire that makes sure you're doing things right, kind of helps you double check and verify all that stuff, and then also they do an external scan against your firewall, right, the device you're living behind. And so I was wondering, my day job is working for a data center. Half the people in there probably have PCI compliance they need to do. Is there a solution out there where we could kind of white label it and offer that as a service to people? And I found these folks, and we're still vetting them, but they're called Clone Systems, and it looks like that's exactly what they do. It's a very easy setup process, onboarding for them, and then the customer interface seems to be really simple. So I just thought, if any of you guys are in kind of hosted firewall or something like that, and you wanted to actually add PCI compliance to your repertoire to sell to customers, it seems like a pretty decent method for you to white label it so it looks like yours. The only time Clone System shows up is whenever you produce the report. I think they call it like an AVS or AVN. It's basically the scanning company that's registered to do the PCI compliance. They show up on the report, but other than that, it looks like your stuff all the way through, so it's pretty neat. Let's see, we have one Dave Atias joining us. Did I say that right? Is it Atias?
Actually, you're one of the few people that pronounce it properly.
All right. How do people usually say it?
Atias or Adius.
Adius?
Yeah. Yeah, it's my whole life. So, yeah, you actually said it right the first time, which is awesome. Kudos to you.
Well, where are you?
Are we actually recording?
Davey?
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello. Sorry, I'm late. I had to endure traffic, the LA traffic. Was that actually we ran into Gautier today at the park.
John Paul
Gautier. I don't know, the guy that sings that song, Now You're Just Somebody That I Used to Know.
Is that what you told him?
No, that's him. I actually got some pictures because his kid and my kid were playing together.
I used to know.
Thank you. You're just doing wonders for my ego.
Oh, there you go.
My shrink will thank you. You're giving him more of my business. Let's see, I actually have a picture of it here. But anyway, I jumped in. You were talking about clone system and PCI compliance. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. Actually, I just had to deal with a little bit of that. Hey, Kernak, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I was just talking to a customer about Unimus. It's a provider, a VoIP provider. They called me, wanting me to do QoS for them, and I said, well, if they they haven't been using Mikrotik, they were recommended to use it, and that's how they got in touch with me. They're in Temecula, which is not too far from me. And then I said, well, if you're going to start deploying a lot of Mikrotiks, you may want to consider Unimus. And so I guess they probably signed up or going to get one of those free accounts first. But where is Mr. Gautier?
Yeah, I did. I saw somebody on the VISP blog, visp.net. They're the kind of the back-end billing platform. They did a little article on streamlining Mikrotiks or something like that. And at the end, the guy actually put a blurb about Unimus and backups and all that stuff. Are you sure he's not just some rando that happened to be at the park?
Nope, I'm pretty sure it's him. There's my wife. There's Mr. Gautier in the background. Yeah, he has a Asian wife apparently, and they have a kid, same age as my kid, so they were playing together.
I bet he's just some rando. He's just so used to hearing that he's like, yeah, that's me, totally.
Cool. I'm wearing my Mikrotik shirt.
Oh, so proud of you for being clothed on this one, not like all the rest of them.
That's why you only get chin up.
That's the money maker. The face. Don't hit the face.
Don't hit the face. People can insure their hands and their face and their anything. Like you can insure your legs if you're like a model that would model stockings and stuff.
Right,
you can actually insure your legs. What?
Like if you're Michael Flatley?
I don't know who that is, but if
he's the Lord of the Dance, dude. Come on.
I don't know. Am I allowed to ask? Are porn stars allowed to insure also parts of their body?
I don't.
I'm sure there's a policy for everything.
I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see. So somebody had asked a question. I think it was Isaac, but he said, "What's in your backpack?" And so, there was a lot of the normal stuff. Saw, everybody's got a laptop in their backpack. Everybody's got Ethernet cables. I think virtually everybody said they have kind of a USB to serial adapter with lots of different interfaces, for kind of any eventuality that they might run into.
I have that. I have never used it, but I have it just in case.
Do you? I actually
just in case.
I keep two. I'm super paranoid with stuff like that because I've had onesie twosie things go, so I can keep two Cisco console cables because I've had one go bad.
I think only Cisco people will ever actually carry the Cisco rollover console cable because at least back in the day, if you got locked out of your router, the only way to get in is with console. So I think that's been burnt into us to always have your console cable with you. And, since back in the day when all laptops had serial ports and Ethernet ports, but especially serial ports, you needed that USB to serial adapter.
Well, I like it too for maintenance. So if you're going to do something that's going to kick your router offline, you can't remote into it. It's nice to be just direct in. It's a lot faster for troubleshooting, things like that sometimes too. Plus,
I'm curious.
Say you're out at a site, you'd have to VPN into work. So you'd have to connect your laptop somehow wirelessly, VPN into work. Then you can come back on the management subnet. So it's usually easier just to go right into the serial port.
Oh, these days when everybody has 4G and you just throw up a hotspot on your phone, it's super easy. But, go back 3, 4, 5 years and none of that was common or possible even. And
I'm curious because, okay, two things. First of all, back in the day, I had to do some installs for a company called Avalon. They used to build apartment buildings and whatnot. And they had Cisco equipment in there. And they would send me all over the place to do stuff like that. My God, this is like 15 years ago. One thing they always had was a modem that had a serial cable connected to it so that just in case the network goes down or internet dies, because back in the day, internet connections weren't as reliable as they are today, they could dial in. So obviously, nobody has POTS lines anymore, or it's kind of rare. So I wouldn't even know if that's a viable solution to have some sort of super failover in case something. But my question is, Mikrotik has a USB port, and I haven't tried it, but can you actually connect a USB to serial adapter to it and then kind of console in to a device that way, or nah?
Yes, you can, but you have to configure it to do that beforehand. So if you just get logged out and then you plug in a USB to serial, that's too late.
Yeah. Well, don't they have
there's
the Woobum thing?
What's that?
Yeah, that's the new thing.
Because in my backpack, I always carry at least two Mikrotik, small ones, like the Hap Mini. At the last mom, I got those map lights, little magnetic map lights. And what else? And I carry, I think, a Hap. I have the Hap Mini, a Hap light, and now that little. What's that little magnetic one?
The map.
The map, yeah. Hap map.
Yeah.
Or Hap Mini. Yeah. What am I saying? I have it right here. Actually, it's on my shelf.
I like keeping a Hap AC squared in my laptop bag since it's got gig ports and like a pretty decent CPU on it. You can
those
actually throw those in a pinch for.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a pretty decent throughput.
Those really are like if it had a an SFP port, then you can really say it's the Swiss Army knife of routers. But for what it is, it's best bang for the buck. I mean, for small networks, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that there is actually a Hap AC squared with an SFP now. Right? Or am I thinking of 750 GX4?
I think the Hap AC,
I'm going to the
school
website.
Original one had an SFP port, right?
But that wasn't small. That was like the white box,
that was the kind of bigger one. Not that it's huge. I mean, by normal networking standards, it's still small, but it's it's bigger than the other stuff.
Yep, I know. I got but they're kind of expensive. They're like $120.
Yeah, for the OG ACs. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I love
pricey.
them. Yeah, because they had everything. But I don't know. Mikrotik's coming out with things that are smaller with more power and cost less. So I don't know.
That's the wave of the future. But let's see. So what else were in people's bags? I think at least 3 people said they had lockpicks in their bags, which surprised me. I thought I was the only weirdo that carried lockpicks around with me.
I always want to learn how to do that.
That's really
just to
easy.
know.
You just order them and you watch some YouTube videos and you start trying it.
I've seen the YouTube videos. I wanted to get a bump key, but have you seen the YouTube video with the bump key?
Sure.
Actually, that's the whole reason why I got an abloy lock, because, I mean, you can't say that it's not pickable, but, dude, if I showed you this key, you're going to be like, what is that?
Yeah, you're talking about like an ASA abloy?
Yep.
Yeah,
I have the ASA abloy locks on my house.
A lot of times with stuff like that, it's just, it doesn't have to be unpickable. It just has to be more unpickable than the guy next door to you, right? And to be honest with you,
depending on what the guy next door to you has,
well,
you know?
how many criminals are walking around with lockpicks anyway? To be honest with you, they're just going to boot your door down, you know, or they're going to break your window. So they're not picking locks.
Exactly what I tell my wife. She's like, we bought these locks. They're like $400 each. And because when I was going away on business trips, she's like, I want to feel safe. And I'm like, sweetie, our windows are paper thin. You could throw a pebble through them. And I'm like, but your lock can survive a nuclear war. So whatever.
Yeah, the house will burn down, but the lock will still be there. Yeah, it'll be good.
Lock will be in great shape.
Yeah.
Man.
Let's see. What else? I keep a small multimeter, like a pocket-sized one, because I still do a decent bit of electronic stuff. And just for quick troubleshooting, it can be really helpful. You know, continuity testing of contacts,
Hold on.
checking circuits, things like that. I also like to keep zip ties. I don't know about you guys, but I like keeping zip ties in there. And I also keep the little zip ties that have the tags on the end, so you can zip them on something and write a label. I know they aren't the prettiest thing, but if you're running cable in a pinch somewhere, you can actually still zip tie and label that cable. And to that end, I keep Sharpies too. A couple of the clicky ones, like the clicky tops. And then somebody else was talking about how they have you keep a hub?
No, it's a USB hub, but you can't see the front of it. The front of it, it's actually a USB Ethernet? To gigabit Ethernet port, and it has 3 USB 3s on it. So that's one of the things I keep. For some reason, I don't know why, but I keep a 1 foot just power cable, standard power cable, because I don't know. Wouldn't it suck if you couldn't find one of these and you needed one? Obviously, I keep Ethernet. This is just a USB to USB-C cable for whatever reason. I keep little screwdrivers. What else? I don't know. Oh, I keep a lot of Zantac in my bag. Zantac 75.
Like heartburn medicine?
Yeah, dude. I keep Zantac 75 because when you got heartburn, that day sucks. So, it's just an awful day.
Yeah. I keep ibuprofen in my bag.
That's a good. Yeah, I keep Advil. Yeah, it's a good one. I keep Powerline network adapters. I don't know why, but I just have them. I don't go to on-site often. Oh, I also have a whole bag of tools with me, just like crimpers and
I keep
stuff
all
like
that stuff separate. I keep that in my trunk. I used to keep it in my laptop bag, and then I was evaluating how heavy my laptop bag was versus how often I actually use that stuff. And so I just started pulling it and putting it in my trunk. As I don't use something, I just keep it in there. So I technically have it with me. I just don't always need to carry it.
But speaking of things you keep in your car, you know what I keep in my glove box?
Pistol? You're always talking about your guns.
An official Brothers WISP award that Mike Hammock gave me.
All right, see, now I got to edit this out.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything bad.
All right, so something else somebody sent a link to that they were talking about that intrigued me was this GPD Micro PC 6-inch handheld industrial laptop. So it looks like I don't know what 1995 thought the future of handheld electronics were going to be, but it's just this tiny little laptop that apparently has a built-in serial port, a built-in Ethernet, and wireless. So I was thinking that's actually kind of a cool little pocket PC to take.
Does it run Windows?
GPD actually makes multiple models of these tiny computers. There's GPD Win, there's GPD Win 2, and then there is this one, which is their industrial model.
Oh.
And I've actually looked at getting the GPD Win 2 multiple times, and also this new one, which for obvious reasons, having actual serial port and everything else. They are Windows, they are touchscreen, they have decent battery life. It's tiny Atom processors, but they are powerful enough, to do basic troubleshooting and networking stuff. So I've looked many times to buy one, but I haven't yet.
It looks like US dollars is about $370.
Depends which one. I'm looking right now, and they have some for 600, 700, 1500. But I'm probably guessing without even researching it. They probably have different specs to them, like different types.
There's different processors in them, different Atom lines. There is also different screens with different resolution. They have a bunch of models.
Yeah.
Are netbooks still a thing? Is that still popular?
Now everything has transitioned to this, thin, super light laptops, which it has merged pretty much into a single category.
Yeah. You know what I really like? I mean, this looks really cool. I wouldn't say it's very practical, but you could definitely stuff it in a big pocket,
That seems like
So
an in a pinch kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, but for like $500, $600, you could just pick up like an MSI laptop, like a super slim one.
Like the cheapest, crappiest thing, and then just get a couple of USB peripherals.
Maybe.
Like,
I don't know.
Like a USB to serial port and a USB.
The point is the size, right? You
Yeah.
you just stick it in your pocket, literally.
Yeah, you could. That's pretty cool
What
idea. I don't think I would
what
ever
would you
use
use this
one.
for? Yeah, what would you use this for? Because it looks like it has a gamepad on it, so people may be using it as a gaming device as well.
So there is two lines. There's the GPD Win line, which I mentioned, which is the portable gaming line. So basically you carry it instead of before the Nintendo Switch, they would say you would carry it instead of a PSP or a Nintendo 3DS or something. Now that the Switch has claimed a large portion of the portable gaming market, well, it has taken a chunk out of, out of these particular Windows super portable tiny laptops. So, But
Actually,
speaking of things carrying in your bag, I actually carry a Raspberry Pi in my bag, and I love playing with it anytime I'm at the airport or I'm in the plane, and it's actually kind of funny because when I
freak people out.
Yeah, I was just about to say. So what I do is I also have the map, right? And as you know, the map can be powered off USB. So I basically pull up a battery bank, power a map out of it, power a Raspberry Pi out of it, and basically I have a portable network, and I can connect Ethernet, from my laptop to the map to the Raspberry, and you have like a portable network with you with the Raspberry. And yeah, when I set this up at the airplane, I've gotten multiple strange looks from people. Is he building a bomb?
Right, and then they hear the accent, and they're like, he's definitely building
Oh
a bomb.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. They're putting you in a back room somewhere. And
Oh yeah.
God,
That's
yeah,
cool.
but these are some cool little laptop toys. I'm surprised that I'm wondering if Android, because I'm a big Android fan. I used to be an Apple guy for the phone, but I'm wondering if there's peripherals that you can connect via Bluetooth, like a serial Bluetooth port, and connect to certain things, or what. Is there anything that a laptop could do nowadays that what is it called? An Android couldn't do with certain peripherals attached?
Well, I know they make little serial adapters that are wireless with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so you could theoretically Bluetooth to it with your smartphone and get into a serial just like you would with a laptop.
And just recently, with these new USB-C connectors on the phones, I was able to connect a USB stick through a USB-C adapter, connect it to my phone, and bang, I just had storage out of nowhere. I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't think you could do that. But yeah, it showed up as a drive. I was able to save stuff to it. So that's kind of cool.
Well, you have these, like Samsung has Dex, which is their desktop experience basically. So it's slowly, very slowly getting there. Where it's the age of the superphone, right? Everything's on your phone. You plug it into a monitor, and it's a desktop. But it's still nowhere near close for professional user, for serious actual power user stuff.
Yeah.
Well, a power user wouldn't be using this tiny little, what is this thing? The GPD.
Well, actually, power user depends how you define a power user, right? You can put
That's
Linux.
getting philosophical.
Well, yeah, but you can put Linux on this, and you can spin up Docker containers. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with a tiny computer like this. You don't need super powerful computers to build insanely complex topologies in Docker, which
not what are the capabilities or possibilities, but like my question is, when would you use a GPD? When would it be a great idea to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring my GPD just in case. Like, it's a perfect scenario for that. What would it be?
I would say a guy climbing a tower, hanging a radio, and he wants to do alignment while he's up there.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one.
Travel. Anywhere you travel and you want portability with you, and you still, you have time which you can kill, which airplanes are the literal definition of, you have so much time and you can do nothing. It's perfect because it gives you the power and flexibility to do at least something that's useful with the time that you are forced to spend traveling.
Well, you know what? That is a good use. But I use my laptop for that, my regular laptop when I'm on planes. Of course, you travel like 16-hour flights to get to America, so I can't blame you. But I wonder if these little GPDs
last year was very rough for me with traveling, so I traveled a lot, and yeah.
What about, can you power a GPD with like a USB charger? Like, what is those little USB battery packs?
So actually, a lot of the newer laptops that charge through USB Type-C, there is two types of USB charging. There is the usual USB charging, which is 5 volt, and all the USB Type-C charging is 9 volt. So if you have a proper battery bank which can output 9 volt over USB Type-C, you can actually power any modern laptop with a power bank through USB Type-C.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm seeing that now. Karnak, how do you have time to know all this stuff? You run Unimus. I think you also are contracted by some company, and you have a girlfriend, which I'm sure is going to be a wife at some point. How do you have time to just sit and absorb all this stuff?
It's rather simple. I have no life.
Oh, okay. And that answers that. Wait until you have kids. Then you will know.
Yeah, exactly. I luckily, so far, I have no kids, so I can spend my time elsewhere, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll have the same workload. You'll just have guilt associated with the time you spend away from your family. So it's basically the same thing, but just, slather on a nice helping of guilt on top. And
totally.
That's what it's like having kids.
Absolutely correct.
Oh, man.
That's actually, I didn't even know if I was going to make the podcast today because I was with the wife and the kid, and we were in Griffith Park, just going to buy tickets for Steve Martin and Martin Short. I don't even know when, July 6th, I think, which
cool.
is...
I heard that's a good show.
I don't know. I've never even... I mean, I love Steve Martin. And when you put Steve Martin and Martin Short together, man, it's like fire and fuel. They are awesome together.
Yeah, dude, three amigos.
A plethora? That's my favorite scene.
What is a plethora? Let's see. So speaking of kind of laptops, backpacks, troubleshooting, all that stuff, Thomas, you found a CLI version of Wireshark just recently.
Yeah, that one is super cool. We can link it, in our usual notes and everywhere else. But yeah, it's a almost full-featured Wireshark with the appropriate, GUI, but it's all in terminal, and it's I love it.
Wait! You got to post a link to that.
Yeah,
that
I've
is
got the link.
Awesome. By the way, for anybody that cares to do packet captures using that's in the VoIP industry, I've said it before, and I'm sure if you're in the VoIP industry, then you probably know about it, but sngrep is exactly that. It's Wireshark, but it shows you live ladders. It shows you live dialogues, and then you could save that as a PCAP. So sngrep, that's Sierra Nevada grep, awesome program. Really, really amazing what you could see. Because it'll only show you the SIP and RTP traffic, and you could see response times like real time, which is absolutely amazing. Otherwise, in Wireshark, you would have to, do a capture, download it, filter it, decode it, then you can look at that. So you got a couple of steps to go through with Wireshark when you're doing VoIP. But when you're doing sngrep, it's just all right there on the screen for you. It's wonderful. And it's also CLI based, and that's the best part.
Check. So Thomas, how did you happen across this tool?
So how I keep up with all this crap, a part of this is that I have very specific Google News filters, and basically Google just tells me anytime there is something. I have set it up in a way that, it knows what I'm interested in, and it finds this stuff for me, and I just get notified of cool stuff.
Baller. Let's see.
Yeah, I've become really fond of Google News, actually. Once you set it up correctly, and once you tell Google all about yourself, then it performs wonderfully.
I'm sure they'd love to do that. All the targeted advertising, they're able to.
Oh yeah,
to give
I'm sure they get their end out of the deal out of that.
I'm just looking forward to the day where they know what I want before I want it, and it just shows up at my house. Like through Amazon or something like that, they'll have some algorithm where they'll just randomly ship me stuff, and I can choose to keep it or not keep it, right? But odds are I'm gonna love it, so I'll just keep it anyway.
Dude, that would be the end of your bank account.
I could see.
Yeah, you just send a monthly dollar limit on how much stuff they can ship you, and stuff shows up.
It'd be fine. I think that would be pretty baller. Just think about all the surprises.
What would they send you?
I don't know, man. Because I never buy myself anything. I never get anything, so I have no idea what it would be. If it was based on my wife's shopping habits, it would be accessories for her Jeep or leggings, like sportswear. I guess she buys a crap ton of that. I don't know. So it would be really bizarre. It's like when you give somebody access to your Netflix, and all of your sudden your favorite shows start turning into like. Well, in my wife's case, it's all murder shows. So she's gone through like 100 hours of forensic files, every show about murdering people. I'm just assuming, she's prepping for the future. She's just doing research for my ultimate demise. I don't know why else you'd get so much. I don't understand people's fascination with like all this murder and stuff. It's not for me.
You ever watch Dexter? I mean, that is hands down the best series I have ever seen in my life.
The first season was okay. It went downhill pretty fast after that, I thought.
No, God, I could watch that 100 times and love it. It is so dark. It is so awesome.
Yeah, not for me.
Because I have these visions of like wanting to be the vigilante, killing all this son of a bitches that I can't stand. Anyway,
it's like Breaking Bad. Like I liked the first season, but it broke my heart when Bryan Cranston became the bad guy and just more and more, became this evil it like broke my heart because I wanted him to be the hero and he wasn't. He's the anti-hero. And
actually,
spoiler alert, should I say?
With Breaking Bad, I am pretty sure there will be a right point where I will force my kids to watch it. It will be of course not when they are too young, but it shows you what drugs and the entire drug trade and everything that's connected to it, what it really does to a person and to everything related to a person. It's like the downward spiral is amazing.
Now, those two series, what I took from it is how a director can get you to empathize and root for the killer, for the bad guy, and you kind of relate to him. I think that was the magic of those two series, because obviously, people that kill, not very good. No matter how you justify it, it's just not a good thing to do. Selling drugs, not a good thing to do. But somehow, throughout both series, you end up really empathizing for them and rooting for them and wanting them to succeed at selling more drugs and killing more people. So I think that is a good director.
I think Dexter's easier. For me, it was the slow demise of Bryan Cranston in there because you could see the goodness in him. And at every turn, every opportunity we had the chance to pull himself out, he just dug himself deeper, and it broke my heart.
Rocked it. but he rocked it. Okay, he became kingpin of that whole thing, of the whole drug meth thing. Anyway, did you know that Dexter actually was filmed here in Long Beach, and that Dexter's house, the pink one, is literally about 8 blocks from my condo.
I'm so proud of you. You're always telling me about stuff in Long Beach.
Dude, it's so weird. And I did see Snoop Dogg in Long Beach, just so you know.
Good for you. I don't get starstruck. I can't imagine anybody I would run into that would make me starstruck. You know who? Maybe there's 2 people that maybe. One would be Jimmy DiResta or Adam Savage. Those 2 people are probably the closest thing to being starstruck I would be if I ever met somebody.
Actually, there's a BattleBots going on near us very soon. Very, very soon. In Long Beach University. Long Beach College. They're having a BattleBots show over there, actually filming it. But Adam Savage, really? Dude, he was like sloshed on half of the shows he was on. You ever see that?
That's fine. I think Adam and I are kind of kindred spirits. I think the maker sort of thing that he's into.
But you don't make fun of anyone. He was always making fun of that other dude with the big beard. Was this guy?
Jamie Hyman. You're saying I never make fun of you?
Oh yeah, that's true. You kind of do. You kind of do.
I make fun with you. There's a difference. Right?
I think I'm the only one you make fun of.
I make fun of. I poke fun at everyone, just in a different way. It's more overt with you.
Yeah, it's more blatant.
All right, so let's keep trucking. Something I ran into, which I thought was bizarre and broke my brain for a minute, was I was doing some research on IPv6. I finally got my allocation, my /32, and so I'm looking at breaking it up and doing all that stuff. And so I was looking at point-to-point links. You know, in IPv4, you usually do a /30, so you got 2 IPs that are usable. In IPv6, it seems that there's some contention. Some people use a /64, some people use a /26, some use a /27. And so I was just doing a little research, and I found an ITF link. And in there, some guy was saying, hey, if you're a service provider and you want to hand your customer a /48 addressing, you can use the first /64 out of there for the connecting subnet. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, you know, because it's all this whole /48's them. And but he says on the customer side, they'll have it configured, you know, yada 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 .2 /64, and on your side, you configure it yada 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 1 /48. And I was thinking, wait a minute, those subnets. I mean, 1, the subnet masks are wrong. But 2, won't you try and, as traffic traverses, won't it try and do neighbor discovery right on that link because it's directly connected, trying to find right like the layer 2 MAC address of that guy. And so a couple of the smarter, much smarter IPv6 guys said, well, you know, if you have like neighbor discovery proxy on, kind of like proxy ARP, you know, on that customer router, then it'll grab it and send it through. John actually made the note that just recently he ran into an exhaustion problem where one of his routers was doing this, and he was getting thousands and thousands of proxied messages until you couldn't remotely log into the router anymore, so it was causing problems. So it seems like that's theoretically something you could do, but it makes more sense to go ahead and terminate in the same subnet and just use a single static route to get that stuff over there, which makes sense to me. That's how you do it in IPv4, right? And it seems very clean to do it in IPv6. It sort of broke my brain to think you would use differing subnet masks to kind of cheat your way around just adding a static route. I don't know. It was super weird. It broke my brain. You guys look at the link. If any of you are more well-versed or understand this better and know a reason why this would be a best practice, you let me know. I just can't see it being a best practice. And I can't find any reference to it other than this one ITF link. Strange things abound. Another one that somebody had asked was, they said they have 2 upstream ISPs, different places, but they're the same ISP and they want to control routing, you know, the inbound routing. So I said use Prepending. I think Mike said use Med, which I guess is, they're both theoretically usable, right? So Prepending is you artificially make one side look further away so it'll use the other. And Med is multi-exit discriminator, I think, where it's a value you can advertise to peers And if it's the same peer, you know, you can make one look preferred over the other. I don't think everyone honors med, or at least as much as they do prepending. So I think prepending might win in that scenario, but who knows? I think they're both usable. Have any of you guys played with the ZeroTier stuff? I know Justin Miller has.
Not I, said the cat.
Switching gears. So ZeroTier is kind of like an SDN, open source SDN, VPN. It kind of does encryption between multiple endpoints dynamically. Sort of, I guess, kind of like Cisco's DMVPN thing. And I know Juniper's got their own version as well. What I was looking for is multipathing, right? Like you jam a whole bunch of cheap internet connections into a device, and it'll look at all of those and test through them and, you know, use the better one. And they say they're going to have it, but it looks like it's like 2 versions away, so it's probably going to be forever. So if any of you guys have used ZeroTier and have a good use case, I'd be curious to hear about it.
Just real quick, a question about that. Yeah, I guess, what would you use that for? You said just multiple different internet connections. Like, are you talking about from a data center point of view or from a customer's point of view?
Well, I've seen
like office LAN
a couple of scenarios. Like, say you've got a bunch of remote offices. You could run a ZeroTier connection at all of them, and it'll basically just create, you know, like a private VPN connection between all of them, I guess. I think it maybe even does layer 2 in between, you know, kind of like an EOIP tunnel or a VPLS sort of thing. I'm not 100% on that. I saw Miller was actually running an iOS app for ZeroTier, so it would pop his phone into a ZeroTier cloud. So he was like getting to his house and controlling stuff. So
okay.
I don't know. The multipathing I thought would be interesting because you could just put a router at a data center, and then for remote offices have a bunch of crappy cheap internet connections that all just went to the data center and then dumped out. So it would theoretically save you money over doing kind of MPLS sort of thing, or you'd have maybe some more intelligent WAN failover, you know, for internet connections. If it's constantly sampling and testing out of each, it's going to know if there's a failure somewhere in the upstream of ISP1, and then could shift everything over to the remaining ISPs is kind of what I was looking for, but it doesn't look like they're there yet.
Yeah, I could really use that with some of my customers, but where would you integrate that? Where would you like use that? Would that be at the router level or at the device level? What?
It looks like it's like a Linux thing. Like if you wanted to use it as an appliance, you could run it as like a Linux VM and have it at your border and just jam all your internet connections into it.
So you need so your Linux VM would essentially be a router.
Yeah, it would be acting as your border router. Or at least that's from what I understand. I could be talking out my butt, which I most likely am.
Well, yeah, I've never heard it, so yeah, I'd like to find out more about it. Sounds pretty cool. I mean, it'd also be pretty expensive because you need multiple carriers, right? Multiple internet connections.
Yeah. Unless you get a bunch of cheapos, then you'd be good.
There's no such thing as cheapo internet connection anymore. I guess you go with the lowest package. You get like, you know, now business packages, they start at like 60 for the first year, then 80 for like their lowest package. And then they say $5 for an extra 3 million megs. But when you read the fine print, it's like up to 3 million megs. Yeah. And then you get 50 megs, usually. Anyway.
All right, let's see. There was something I was messing with a little while back. It was somebody was wanting to integrate a pre-seam router or a pre-seam bridging appliance into their network, but they still wanted failover. And so really between the core switch and the border routers where you stick this thing, it had a bunch of VLAN interfaces that were moving through. And the idea was, well, if the VM dies or the kernel locks, those interfaces are still up. So it's going to appear to be up. So how do you add an extra link and have this still function? So what we came up with, at least because it's like Mikrotik to a Netonix, was to run an extra connection and then just raise the cost on the other link, the backup link, so that STP will shut it down. And if the primary link to the bridging appliance fails, STP will open up that second one and go around. I couldn't really think of a better option. I mean, I was thinking maybe like an LACP trunk in between, you know, kind of like an ether channel sort of thing. Where you tell one side to be primary and then fail over to the other, but the Netonix doesn't have enough intelligence. There's not enough knobs in there to tune anything like that. So because with LACP, it's doing kind of keep alive messages across the link and things like that, looking for failure. So it would see that working through the bridge connection or not. But yeah, the Netonix just doesn't have enough knobs. So really, SDP was the only thing I could kind of come up with that scenario. I was thinking if you did have something more intelligent, you would have more options in between. But that's all I had. I'm just curious if anybody else has any suggestions on that.
Yeah, you will just be limited at what you have on both ends, and Netonix is not a fully featured switching platform, so if you are limited by that, then you have only the options which are available on Netonix.
Yeah.
Dumb question. Why are people using Netonix? Is that because it just takes DC power and you can power it from like batteries and solar panels and all that?
I think it's partly that. They also have an AC version, right? But it's I think it's a switch that can do high power output to power. So like with a Netonix, you can power like an air fiber link as well as regular passive radios, like smaller wattage stuff. And I think most PoE switches can't do that all in one box.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding. And they're really easy to configure. So it's just pretty
super
simple.
Easy, super graphical. Click a couple things and you're done. Yeah. Which of course comes with the obvious, other side of the coin is that you want to do anything serious or anything more complicated, you just can't.
But when you say like high powered, are you talking about like 802.38T or something completely different?
I think the air fibers are it's not like a standards base, I don't believe.
I think it's 45 watt, right, that you power it with.
Yeah, so it's really just a high current.
Okay.
Also, there is a bunch of IP cameras that do the same, like Axis cameras. Axis is the big expensive brand in IP cameras. And if you have the big PTZ, the big domes which have heating and everything else, and they are fully controllable and everything, they also take up to 60 watts. And they have their own standard, which is just called high PoE. And up to 60 watts. So there is a bunch of, for those super high wattage applications, there is a bunch of proprietary standards, and almost every vendor has something.
How the hell do you know this, Kernak?
Because he knows everything.
Well, in a previous life, in a previous job, we actually used to completely manage and take care of a citywide camera network for the local police. And so I know a lot about CCTV, IP cameras, NVRs, DVRs, and a lot of that because it was a part of my job some years ago.
Is there anything you don't know a lot about?
Oh, there is so much I don't know.
Okay.
Right. His so much he doesn't know is so much smaller than my so much I don't know. It's
But what he does know, he's knows a lot about. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. He's a coder, he's a network engineer. I don't know.
I think I explained this a couple of times already. Like my philosophy is, if I'm going to do anything, I have to do it properly. If I don't,
I can't wait till you get married. Oh, I can't wait till you get married.
No, it's my philosophy really is do it properly and do it well, or don't do it at all. And I've said this multiple times. It's come at a price for me as well, or it's a detriment at some point as well for me. If I do anything, I study, I learn, I read until I know everything about it, which has obvious downsides, but it also has upsides. If you have enough time and if you have enough determination, and then yeah. But
could you imagine
quick and dirty projects? No, I won't do those. I simply won't do those.
Could you imagine Kernak being like a psychologist or a mentor? Be like, if you're gonna do it, you got to do it 100%. You got to do it right.
No, I don't force my approach on others. I know. No, it's just how I do things, and for me, it has worked well. I'm not saying it works for everybody, and I completely understand that if everybody was to say, if I'm gonna do it, I have to know it first. Then
I get it. I'm just poking fun at you.
I think it takes definitely a certain personality type to have that kind of dedication. I'm more like the paint on your car, right? I cover a large surface area, but it's like hair paper thin, my knowledge as far as things go. I think
Aren't you like a CCI? Aren't you like a CCIE?
I know. I'm just a curious person, so I like to know how everything works. But I don't know. I usually only go so deep until my curiosity is satisfied, and then I move on to the next thing. It's kind of I guess that's sort of my curse when it comes to that stuff.
I think your modesty is like paint. It's just a lot and a lot of it.
No.
Very modest.
No.
There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood.
I think once you get to a point and you realize how little you honestly know, I think that's where my modesty comes from. It's I do know what I know, but I also realize there's so much that I don't. And then when you surround yourself by people who know so much more than you, it's really easy to be humble. When you're on a phone call with Thomas, it's easy to be humble.
Tell me about it.
You're giving me way too much credit again.
All right. Thomas is more machine than man. That's all I'm going to say. Let's see. So something, just food for thought that I've run into in the past and that I try and impress upon the guys that I work with and that work with me is the philosophy that customer silence is not always a good thing, right? So when you're working with a customer and you send them an email or you've fixed something and you say, hey, can you test this? And then you never hear back from them, right? So I've found in past experiences that silence from a customer is usually one of two things. It's either acceptance or they've given up on you, right? And so, like if something's failed enough times, then they're just like, forget it. I quit. I don't care anymore. I've given up, right? I'm moving on. I'm going to find another vendor. I'm going to do something else, right? So my philosophy is to out-communicate these people. Something that JJ Boyd told me is that it's a game of ping pong. You never want the ball on your side of the court, so you always hit it back. And if you don't get resolution, this is how I work. If I don't get resolution, if I don't have the customer reply back or call back, or I call them and they answer and say, yes, the problem is solved, or yes, you've given me the answer I'm looking for, then I'll keep going. My job is to out-communicate them. I was curious, but I think that's also kind of the core of good customer service, right? Make sure that everything is okay. The other side of the coin is it's also a cover your ass, right? It's a CYA. So you can say, look, I pursued this as much as I could. I kept we've got a customer who I get BGP notifications about their peer bouncing. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times a day. And I've been contacting them, or we've been contacting them for about 3.5 weeks, and they won't answer. And we're calling them and and then a few days ago, it just went hard down and they're scrambling and we're getting phone calls like emergency. It's like, we have diligently tried to contact you over and over and over and over. You know what I mean? So to me, that's the CYA portion of it, right? We have been trying to contact you, or we have been pursuing this to completion. And I think younger guys too, they want to just run and gun, right? They just want to fire from the hip and move on to the next thing. And I think it's hard to force people to slow down, make sure this is taken care of, right? Fire a shot across their bow, move on to the next thing, but create a reminder to go back. I was just curious what you guys think about those sort of scenarios as far as customer communication goes and completion or troubleshooting, things like that. How do you guys normally handle that sort of stuff?
I'll let Kernek start it.
For me personally, I actually don't understand people that don't take care of their customers. Your customers is literally who pays your bills. So if your customers are not happy and if you're not providing a good enough customer service, then obviously you will lose those customers sooner or later. And also,
I don't think that's what Greg is saying. No, I think Greg is saying unresponsive, where he's called them several times, sent them emails. He did everything his part to CYA, right? But so he is taking care of the customers. But I think his question is, what do you do when you get no response from a customer?
Well, it could be that. I mean, it's sort of a wide open question, open for interpretation. Just what do you guys think about communicating with customers?
Well, I guess Kernek's silence in this case means that I should go. He's yielding to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. Well, God, all right. So First thing I do with customers is I kind of vet my customers a little bit, just to make sure that they're not gonna, that they don't have unrealistic expectations. So the first thing I do is I set expectations with the customer. Here's what you should expect with the service. This is how we respond to things. This is how we, do our deployments. This is what happens when there's an issue. And I kind of lay it all out for the customer, giving them a good path of what to do and what the next steps are and how we work and how we respond. So that kind of sets the stage, and I should really document that. Usually I just send it in an email or I'll say it over the phone, but I should probably make it more of a, here's our procedures and protocols for customers. Or I think some companies call it an escalation list, right?
Right, just come up with a template of how you do things, yeah.
But typically I do that, and I mean, I have a very high tolerance for customers that can want things done yesterday. I'll say it that way. So, like for example, I have a customer. One of their phones just has a major issue. It keeps failing registration, even though its username, password, and all the credentials are correct. But because they're on a very old version of Polycom software, firmware, it just has some incompatibility with our other system that's running Asterisk. So I get a bunch of probably something like 1,000-something wrong logins per day, and I have to whitelist their IP so they don't get banned. The whole office get banned. But I've spoken to them, I've told them, I've emailed them, I did the CYA, and as long as I know I did the best I could, and I haven't left any parts, any loose ends, I know I did my job. If they're not responding, then I don't know there's a nice way to say this, but they didn't do their job. So at that point, it's, there's not much else you could do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and two,
I can't.
It's a customer, right? They're the ones paying you. So if they don't want to answer you, I guess they don't technically have to, right? Because they're paying for your service, But
it also depends. How far do you want to go? So, for example, when your customer had that BGP peer that just would go down 3, 4, 5 times a day, whatever it was, and then all of a sudden they were completely down. They call you and they're frantic, and I'm sure they're kind of putting some of that responsibility on you, even though you CYA. That's a customer, in my opinion, that had unrealistic expectations, because now you've been warning them. You can't fix their problem for them because you don't want to touch their equipment without their consent or without their approval, whatever. Or maybe it's not something you want to get involved with because you're a provider. But then when everything falls apart, they might be calling you and not have a very friendly tone. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not sure what to do in those situations. I think just help the best you can and try to make this a learning experience for them so that they know to be preemptive and proactive so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So kind of teach them a lesson sort of thing.
Well, I think too, it's you don't really know what's going on inside that company. Maybe it's just 2 guys and one of the guys just quit, so this guy's just overloaded, or, maybe the network guy, he moved on to another company. And so this guy's really just the server and phone guy. So he doesn't know anything about routers, and so he's doing the best. You never really know what's going on inside.
But still, there's no excuse for that, because if you're telling them there is a problem, we see a problem,
they keep
ignoring it.
Yeah, they can at least reply in an email saying, "Yep."
And say something like, "I don't know what this means. What do I do?" Something, any response.
Yeah, any response is better than
good
silence for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's a professional reciprocation, right? It's just,
yeah. As
a professional, I will at least acknowledge that you're communicating with me in some way. What's funny is I used to be really terrible to salespeople that would call, and I would do...
I can't imagine you being terrible to anyone.
Well, you would just hang up on them. You'd say, "Stop calling me," and you'd hang up, stuff like that. And how is that any different? They're people doing their job. They're getting paid to do this job, so...
There is a difference, though. Unsolicited sales is a difference if somebody is your customer and you're notifying him, that something is wrong with the service you are providing to him. There is a big difference to unsolicited calls and you doing your part to your customer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just mean, professional courtesy to people just trying to do their jobs. Like it's to me, it's professional courtesy to just reply to that email saying, hey, yeah, we see there's a problem with BGP and we're working towards a resolution. Okay? Or if some guy's just doing his job and he's calling me and asking me if I want to have him email this white paper, I get that like non-stop. Minimum 2 times a week I'm getting a call about, hey, we just want to email you information on this thing. So what my new play is, if I hear it's a marketer, I'll instantly say, all right, I'm going to listen to you. You've got 30 seconds. If I'm not interested, I'm going to hang up. I want you to pull me on your list. And I say, go. And I start the timer. So I give them 30 seconds. I'm like, nope, not interested. Take me off your list and hang up. Right? To me, it's at least this guy gets a few seconds on the phone. He gets to say whatever he has to say. And then I can say, I'm not interested. Take me off the list. So I don't know. That's kind of...
For me personally, for unsolicited calls like that, I have no... I
agree with Kernak.
What?
I agree with you. This morning, I got a call. So I had to open an LLC just recently. I just wanted to open this other company. Same thing, VoIP. Anyway, because I have partners, and instead of making a buy-sell agreement, I just wanted to add the partner in case I die, they take over. Anyway, so I opened it with LegalZoom just because it was cheap and quick, and their process was pretty slick. So I did that. Now, all of a sudden, this morning, all right, this is a Saturday, all right, for you guys that are listening out on Podcast World. It's a Saturday morning. I'm in LA, all right? So somebody from Florida calls me, and I'm thinking, all right, it could be a customer. It's a 972 area code, it's Florida. Pick it up, and they're like, hi. Yeah, I just saw that you opened the company with LegalZoom, and we're an accounting firm. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, hang on a second. First of all, I already have an accountant for the past 15 years, and I'm using him. So thank you for the call. Have a good day. And I hang up. But like Saturday morning, you know, if you're going to, and like I was up because I don't sleep anymore. I got a 1-year-old. So just sleep is not happening. So I answered it. But that is just not professional at all. In that case, you get slammed the phone down. Well, you can't do that anymore with cell phones. You have to be like poke. But, you know, so I'm with Kernak on that. And
for us in Europe, it's even more different because actually now with GDPR in Europe, you know, they should never even have gotten your personal information. So even your name, and actually I have started being really nasty to unsolicited callers that just like, hi, is this Tomas on the phone or is this Mr. Kernak? I immediately pull out GDPR and they get real scared really fast because they cannot legally have my name in GDPR. And it really pisses me off when they do because then I know they have acquired my contact details, including my name and my number, and probably a lot more than just that in some database that's, you know, flying around somewhere, which is literally illegal in Europe. So I have no respect or anything to that because then, you know, if you are acquiring your contact information illegally, then, you know, what else is happening there?
So you're telling me you guys have never cold called somebody before? Because that
literally no.
That is a harrowing experience. I think if you cold call a few people, it kind of changes your perception on the whole scenariyo.
Oh, so in Europe, you really cannot cold call anymore due to GDPR. You have to have some previous contact. You have to have a way of, what is it called, consent. You know, the person has to consent to his personal information, name and number and everything else being given to you. So, yeah.
Funny you say the word consent because I call cold callers, I call them ear rapists, all right? Because they call you without your consent, and they're just blasting you in your ear trying to sell you some crap. I think good companies shouldn't have to cold call. I think crappy companies need to cold call because they don't know how to do marketing. And in today's digital age, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to start a Google AdWords campaign or do some online marketing, Google Maps, anything. You know, put your business on Yelp. There's so many ways to have customers find you. You shouldn't have to have a person call and reach out to people.
I think that makes sense unless you're in something of a niche business where, or say you're just starting out, right? So You're
But
not
more
gonna
so if you're
not gonna say you're in a business where your target market is somebody who, say, does a specific sort of thing, and you can make them a lot of money and make you money at the same time, but they don't even realize your service exists, right? They don't even think to look for something like this. So you've got to me, the best way of doing it is a warm introduction. You find somebody that knows that guy, you get him to introduce you, right? Because odds are you can make some kind of finagling connection somewhere to get in there, right? So that they'll at least halfway listen to what you're having to say.
Sort of. I mean, I get it. That could just be a very awkward situation when someone I know introduces me to someone that, and I want to be nice because, friends of my friends are friends of mine. But, if I don't need something, I'll be as polite as possible, and say, thank you and I appreciate it, but blah.
Yeah, well,
but when it's a stranger, it's another story.
When I'm doing that sort of thing, I'll say, look, I'm fixing to try and sell you something. Give me 30 seconds. If it doesn't work out, you don't want to pursue this further, that's fine. I'll race you to hang up the phone. If you are interested, we can go from there. And I've never had anybody say no. They'll at least give me the 30 seconds and we'll talk it out and whatever.
It's funny you say that because at the MUM, there was a company that did that to, I could say his name, right? We don't have to edit anything out, right?
I don't know.
No, the person that got solicited. So it's okay to say names, or
I don't know, is it?
All right. Anyway, I don't know. Because you're always like, I have to edit that out. By the way, after the podcast, when I say stuff,
I think it's fine if somebody
Greg
is solicited. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So like Ty, I won't say his last name, but Ty, who was hanging out with us. We were in the MUM conference room, but not the conference room, the vendors room or the exhibitors room, and some dude comes over to him and he's like, hey, do you have like a minute for me to tell you about how, our product and how we can make you money?
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
No, those guys take money. But yeah, he came over and Ty listened, and then Ty came to me, a couple minutes later, and I'm like, dude, how'd that go? And he's like, dude, they are going to give me money. And I was like, you should. And he's like, but I was like, is that like a scam or something? And he's like, no, apparently they do this, and they do research based on who's browsing and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Find out more and see if it's legitimate. And he said, these are our customers, and he says everybody that signs up with this company, they are a little skeptical at first because if somebody's willing to give you money for data,
so long as it's not that one of the companies that they will proxy stuff through and then put their own affiliate code on traffic you're sending out, because there's been a few of those before, and I think they've all gotten shut down at one way or another.
I don't know.
They would kind of inline. They would change your traffic in line and add their affiliate code to stuff, and then fire it on down the road, and so you'd get like a taste of their profits or whatever.
I don't know.
This is no longer possible with HTTPS, at least not in a way that these guys were doing it before. Now you actually have to do it at the end machines. But I know exactly who Dave is talking about, and they do something a little else.
Okay.
But the point was, the way the guy approached it is, do you have a minute? And who's going to say, no, I don't have a minute?
Yeah. Give him at least a couple seconds.
In the MUM, it's a very small, little, tiny exhibit hall. So sure, I'll listen, but if you're at something like Channel Partners, do you have a minute? No. So you just keep walking on. So
yeah, I don't know, man. I try and remember everybody's a human. If I can give them, it's just like if I see a guy on the street and he's asking for money, the least I can do is say, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you anything right now. I see some people completely ignore them like they don't exist, and to me that kind of breaks my heart when I see people do that. Not to say that's bad. If you do that, that's fine. It sort of breaks my heart.
What breaks my heart when I see homeless people is not when they're asking for money, but when they're asking for food. And when I worked in New York City, there's a lot of people that would sit on the sidewalk and just say, hungry, just want food. By the way, that's ballsy because, homeless people typically don't accept food. They're scared of accepting food from people. But I would always if I had food in my bag or something, I'd give them, part of what I had in the bag, or One guy actually bought a oh my God, this was humbling. There was a homeless guy that lived in on this bike trail in Brooklyn where I grew up. And I would always see him. He had one leg and he would walk with crutches every day. I'd see him walking by and it's obvious he was homeless. So one night I was like, this guy, I always see him and I was like, all right, let me do something nice for him. I actually went and I bought him a sandwich from this corner store. I walked up, I gave him the bag. I'm like, hey man, you hungry? And dude, with the most Dickensian distinguished voice I have ever heard, he was like, no, but thank you very much. And I was like, whoa. I was expecting to hear someone bark at me like, no, this guy his English was perfect. His voice tone, intonations were perfect. I was blown away. But I don't know, stupid side
That's what I
point.
do.
Things
If people ask me for money and I've got the time, I'll say, no, but I'll take you over here to Subway and we'll get a sandwich. And sometimes they take you up on it, sometimes they don't. Yeah. So whatever. It is what it is. All right, moving on. My last kind of discussion point is, so last time we talked about switches and kind of basic configurations for enterprise. Now I wanted to ask you guys, if you have a business customer and you're going to do a basic router configuration, right, as their border router, what are some of the things you look to do? And I kind of like the mix up here because Tomas has done some big enterprise stuff, and Dave, you do a lot of VoIP stuff, so you're going to be approaching it from that angle. What do you guys look for in a basic router configuration?
Take it, Kernak. I'll go second.
My philosophy to this is, and this will be Mikrotik specific, but I think you can apply it to other things as well. Although it's not as easy to apply if you are deploying a ASA or ASA, or Juniper or something else as a border router. But for me, for a Mikrotik, what I do is I literally go down into every single menu and configure what I need in the appropriate menu. It's how I make sure I don't forget something. And no, this does not take an hour. Once you've done this many times, it takes literally 5 minutes. But that is my strategy. That is how I make sure I haven't forgotten anything. I go down to every single menu in Winbox and I ask myself, do I need to configure something here for this particular customer and this particular use case? And really, once you get it down, once you know the router and the equipment you are using well enough, it takes 5 minutes, and then you are making sure you don't forget to configure something for that use case. And that's how I do it. And depending on what that customer and what that use case is, then those things that I configure will be different.
Do you usually start with the default firewall rule set on the Mikrotiks now?
No, so what I do before I deploy any Mikrotik, the first thing I do is do system reset configuration, no default equals yes. That's the first thing I do, and then configure it according to the use case and according to the need of the customer.
Do you keep templates for different kinds, or do you really just go from scratch every time?
I do have templates, yeah, sure. Like firewall, it's just not time efficient to configure firewall from scratch every single time. So I have very basic templates which deploy the established, related, and my basic firewall structure that I use for every customer. I have basic templates that configure the interface lists, because realistically for customers' routers, there will be a LAN and a WAN address list, possibly a VPN, maybe a DMZ or something. It's very similar. So I do have templates for things that I commonly configure, but yeah, usually it's literally you go and okay, let's start with interfaces. So if we go to interface, do I need VLANs or don't I need VLANs for this customer? Do I need so then I create the interface lists. Being in the interface, that's the first thing you need, right? Create interface lists. Then you go into bridge and figure out, do I need to do some bridging? Do I need to get VLANs? Do I need this or that? And, then you just go to IP, assign IP addresses, create DHCP servers, DNS, firewall. Then, you ask yourself, do I need IPsec or not? And you see, it doesn't really take that much time. It doesn't take an hour to deploy a router. Once you know your equipment, once you've configured enough of them, it is literally 5 minutes.
So I love the interface list stuff that they've added and the ability to reference it in so many different areas, firewall rules and Mac tool and all that stuff. I think that's really cool. What I really need to know is, do you change interface names? Because if you do, you are an animal.
Yeah, never, ever, never, ever change interface names.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, there's really no reason for it. Just use comments if you need
Yeah,
to.
I use comments extensively.
I
use comments
was
extensively.
wondering if we were going to still be friends after that question or not. I guess we will.
We had one of those moments.
I can't stand it when people change interface names. It drives me bananas.
It's awful. It's awful.
Not that I'm judging you for the people
We
listening.
we have naming standards. For example, of course, when you create a VLAN, I will not leave it at VLAN 1, right? We have naming standards, and everything has to be consistent across our networks. As hopefully everybody knows at this point, consistency is the name of the game. So we have rules and we have way we do things, but yeah, changing names is a big no-no. Interface names.
Yeah, that's awful. I guess I'll go. It's funny. It depends. First of all, I have to give a lot of credit to Nick Arellano. I have learned so much about just keeping things simple. Really, that's it. Because what I used to do with some of the firewalls I had in the data center is I was like, let's protect everything. Let's DDoS everything. Protect everything. And I would have all these rules that protected for DDoS and that protected for if somebody tries to hack and block all these address lists and get address lists from this aggregate and kind of put it into a block list. And I was doing all sorts of stuff. And then Nick just came along, and I swear to God, like he's at a different level when it comes to his technical knowledge. But he just said, just block what you need. He said, only allow what you need to let in. Boom! That was it. And that changed complete paradigm shift, completely changed the way I think about doing firewall security. So when it comes to just setting up a firewall, it's amazing how bad customers' firewall filter rules are. They're atrocious. I don't think I've ever seen one that was pretty good. And the truth of the matter is the default firewall rule set from Mikrotik, I know, Kernak, you say you delete everything, you start from scratch. The default firewall rule list that it comes with, pre-built, is actually sufficient to protect a lot of what you got. Assuming you're doing that. Let's just talk about customers' networks.
My firewall that I deploy is very, very similar to the default Mikrotik rule set. Yeah, the default Mikrotik rule set is very, very good. Yeah. Why I personally tweak it is because I have certain ways that I do things, which goes back to standards and standardization and consistency. And but yeah, it is very similar to the default rules.
Yeah, I got it. The rule set from 5 years ago isn't the same rule set they have now, right? They kind of slowly modified over time, and it has gotten better. Because I used to do the same thing. I would completely wipe, and now my template rule set looks very similar to Mikrotik's as well.
I will say that for anybody listening, please always use your established and related rules for forward and input. Please do that. No, I don't care what your config looks like. You start with that. Unless you have a very specific reason not to allow that, then I'd love to hear it. But always use your established and related rules. Otherwise, when it comes to, a lot of people that call me from the Mikrotik website, they find my name on the consultant list, they call, and typically they call me in particular because I do the VoIP prioritization stuff, or traffic control for that matter. So people would ask me about, I need to set up, prioritization for VoIP or something like that. And, even Doug Emes from Spectrum VoIP, I guess they're a new company, asked me about the QoS rules that I use. So I emailed it to him. I hope it helped. But, I'll tell the audience, you guys, what I told him, and it's, this is not for everyone. It's not for every scenario. QoS depends on, you have to know a couple things. You have to understand your network, you have to understand your bandwidth usage, and you have to understand what you're connecting to. So the basic default rules in my gold config, I call it, that I have, would just basically prioritize the traffic that I think is important if you're running VoIP. So obviously I'm going to prioritize, SIP and RTP kind of like higher up in the chain. I do prioritize HTTP and VLAN traffic just because why not? And then any traffic that has no marks, I prioritize that at a very low. And then you can get involved with, do you want to burst or do you want to allow other things like that. But for basic kind of setup, I should probably paste it at some point in the YouTube notes for this video. But it's going to be custom for everyone. I'll paste my basic setup, and I use address lists for the VoIP servers, and a loud list for, obviously people that are allowed to have access unrestricted. Pretty much stuff like that. But I'll post it, and you guys tell me what you think of it. It's worked wonders for me. I like to start with that, and then based on what customers are doing, I'll change it accordingly. But I'll post the template that I start with that I've created.
So your small business customers, say Thomas, for example, do they usually want a VPN of some type?
So usually yes, and we really recommend it to them as well. Because if you're a small business, you will have like either a camera system you want to access, or you want to access your RDP from home, or if you go on a business trip. And we have moved all of that into VPNs now, because obviously naked traffic over the internet is bad.
So what do you usually configure for VPN, and do you do more than one VPN type just in case?
So these days we have transitioned everything into IPsec XAuth mode config, and that has worked wonders for us.
By the way, great video. He gave a video on a presentation on that at the the Baltimore Mom. It was really good. I liked it, so thank you for that.
And you're most welcome. And it has worked wonders for us. So we used to, before we transitioned to this, because actually Mikrotik didn't have XAuth mod config just 2 years ago. It's a quite new addition to Mikrotik RouterOS. Well, quite new meaning, 2 years ago it was added. So before that, we actually used to configure L2TP IPsec and SSTP. And using those two, and the customers could choose and whatever else. But these days, everything is just IPsec XAuth mod config.
But what if if you're connecting offices together, yeah, but whatever. I guess that's
what I look at is say you're traveling, you're at a hotel, and the Wi-Fi, for whatever reason, is blocking one VPN type. I usually have, kind of a failback of something else as well.
Well, that's the beauty of SSTP. It looks like HTTPS traffic, and why would any network block HTTPS traffic? Greg, wake up.
No, I'm listening. I was waiting for Thomas to jump in. I thought he was about to say something.
Normally, like SSTP is the tunnel to get through, environments which are blocking VPNs. Definitely. There is DPI which you can do, which will differentiate SSTP from HTTPS. It's not the same traffic. So if somebody wants to block SSTP and not block HTTPS, they will. Right?
But then you have to do layer 7 filtering, so I get it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yes. The point, of course, being that SSTP, first of all, is Microsoft. It's not proprietary anymore, actually. It's an open source standard. Microsoft open sourced it quite a few years ago, but it is originally a Microsoft standard, meaning that you have very limited client availability, that being only Windows and Linux, nothing really else.
Don't you have to maintain a public cert on your Mikrotik as well for SSTP?
Yes, and that is the other thing. It requires a valid public certificate, and also it's TCP.
But it could be self-signed by the Mikrotik. Yeah, and it is TCP, so you don't want to run VoIP over it. But actually, I guess IPsec is not TCP or EDB. It's GRE.
No, IPsec, it has its own layer 4 protocol. IPsec ESP specifically.
No, that's right. But I'm hoping and waiting for Mikrotik to make their OVPN, setup UDP as well as having the option of. Well, right now it's TCP only. I would like it to be UDP so I could start, if I need to, start tunneling, VoIP traffic through there.
Right.
So actually, I have a real unpopular opinion on that. I don't like OVPN. I don't like it at all.
You know what? I don't even want to ask why. I'm just not going to use it. That's it. I never used it, but now I'm just not going to use it because Thomas doesn't like it.
Well, I've used it.
No, it's just my personal opinion. I don't like, and this is historical way. I don't like the way it has been implemented in the past. I don't like the way it's been implemented at clients and server sides and everywhere else. I could go on a rant, but I will not. Let's just say I don't like OVPN. I don't want to use it. I think there are better options and there are better ways.
Thomas's patented rants. I told you were going to whip one out.
That's why you were waiting. You were just waiting. You were silent. You were like, all right, when is he going to do it?
I've been leaving breadcrumb trails for him to follow. He just hasn't made it all the way to the rant yet. All right, so basically we talked about on the router configurations, firewall. That was the very first thing that everybody talked about, right? So protect your infrastructure, protect your router. Definitely protect your router. Everybody's got vulnerability, so you want to lower your attack surface as much as possible. Then we talked about VPN, right, for secure communication to your device, not just to remote offices, but your road warriors, right? At some point, you're going to be out. You're going to need to check some in the office, or, I mean, as we start getting more IoT devices, you're going to log in and see what the thermostat is set to at the office, or, log in, look at the local cameras, or some alarm went off for some remote reason, you're going to want to get in there securely. So it's always a good idea. And Tomas is so security conscious these days, especially. So that's obviously going to be the first thing he thinks about. What else can you think of that you put on basic router configurations? I mean, that's, for the most part, I think that's usually it. You do your basic DHCP, VLANing, the normal stuff.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned, even though I go through every single menu there is in Winbox, it really takes 5 minutes because I just use it as a tool to not forget to set something. If you check every single one and you ask yourself, do I need to configure something here? And for 90% of it, the answer is no. But this way you assure, it's about quality assurance, basically. You assure that you don't forget anything.
Yeah. The last thing I know that I do now for sure on these router configurations is I put in the DNS name of my backup server into an access list that allows SSHN, and then I add that device to Unimus to be backed up.
Yeah, definitely. And, for me, that's, Unimus and NetXMS are the two things which every single device has to be in, definitely.
Cool. Well,
by the way...
yeah, go ahead.
Just totally off topic, before I forget, I'm just going to say, I started using Sonar. Isn't that awesome? I'm not even a WISP. Whatever. Anyway.
Void billing stuff?
And yeah, and actually, because they have direct integration with Avalara, which is the taxation and compliance part of VoIP.
Gotcha.
So that was really, really awesome. And dude, I know they're not a sponsor anymore, and I did give them a little bit of lip about that. But
no, it's all good.
It was very short-lived, but I did say, I will say that, what am I doing? Oh, I just like all the features that it has. Like, it's got trouble ticketing built in. It's got a billing system built in. It's got monitoring built in. I loved it. It was a one-stop for managing your managed service providing whatever it is that you provide.
I think, it's funny. So many of us, once we actually move to an automated system like that, like a Sonar, like a VISP, like a Unimus, you think, why did I wait so long to do this?
Yeah, really. I said the same thing when I married my wife. I'm like, man, I wish I knew you a lot longer.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call her an automated system, but, tease their
It seems like that after a couple of years. We kind of know each other's next move.
My wife certainly knows my next move. She's got me figured inside and out. She's still something of a mystery to me, though.
Really? All you got to do is make her happy then. I already know how to make your wife happy. All you got to do is buy her some JP Whitney accessories, leggings, and some like mass murderer documentary.
See, if you really knew women, you'd know not to try and buy them clothing or especially workout fitness wear. Man, that's a
first
disaster.
of all, I will disagree with you. Because funny enough, I do all the clothing shopping for my wife. And even though I'll come home with a bunch of clothes for her, and she's like, I don't like that. I'm like, dude, try it on. Just try it on. Let's take a look. And she's like, I love it. Now she wears it like every day. She'll wear it like 3 days in a row. It's ridiculous.
So you just go to the mall and you start just shopping in rando women's stores?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to feel creepy doing it, but now I just don't give a shit. I'm not buying her lingerie, okay? That I will not do. I will not go into a Victoria's Secret shop.
Once you decide to do something, and you've convinced yourself to do it, just wallow in it. So I guess there you go. You're wallowing in it. Have fun.
And she loves everything I pick out for her. I mean, we return a couple things here and there, but
Well, my wife, it's
I don't
like
know.
she's got to like the look of it 100%. It's got to have like the right stitching. It's got to have the right thickness.
Oh boy.
Because she teaches
boy.
like weights classes and stuff. So they're like
Yeah.
doing squats with weights. And when she squats,
You don't want anything to split.
it
Nothing to
can't
split.
and it also can't become too sheer whenever she does that.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So,
Lululemon had that problem. You remember
so it's
that?
like, all of that. So that's territory you just don't stray into. I understand there's a boundary there. There's a line in the sand, and I will not cross that one. I'll let her do her thing. Plus, I don't know. I'm not perceptive. Like, she'll hear me say something like, oh, that would be interesting. And then 6 months later, when it's my birthday, that thing that I had just randomly mentioned will magically appear. I don't know how she does that.
Because that's how women
She's
are.
very perceptive.
They listen. They remember everything. It's crazy. They'll remember something you said 10 years ago. Like, you said it once and never again for the rest of your life, and they'll remember it.
I need a
why.
Slack dialogue with my wife that I could just scroll back on. Make notes of.
You can
It needs to be
search
searchable.
by.
That's
Did
right. I
ever
need all
say
our
this to her?
conversations indexed. That's what it is. I get lost.
That's fine.
All right, man. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't have anything else. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to pop in or plug or whatever?
Yeah, I was gonna say one day. Today we've already been talking long enough, but yeah, one day I will go down the tangent of my recent crusade against any clear text communication, because that has become a never-ending rabbit hole of.
So you honestly
yeah.
feel like talking about having to build your own CA inside? That wound is healed enough to where you can talk about it?
Well, so yeah, well, it's actually funny. So yeah, I just recently this week actually I built our own CA certificate authority and the proper PKI, private key infrastructure inside for us, for all our projects, for all our certificate needs and everything else. So now I actually run a full-featured production-grade certificate authority, which has been a lot of learning. It has been a lot of learning to make that happen. But at this point, so first of all, I was really against it, and it's a lot of time, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of technology, it's a lot of stuff you just have to do and figure out, and it goes against automation, because as soon as you allow automated access to your certificate authority, it's no longer secured, because now something can interact with it, something has passwords to it somewhere, because it needs passwords to be able to issue certificates. So it breaks a bit of our automation workflow, but now that we have it, I am actually, from a certain angle, glad that I did it. I still hate that I had to do the work. I hate that I had to do the work. But from a different angle, it's really nice once you have it and once you have those full options that a full internal certificate authority gives you. So yeah, it's one day I will go onto a very long talk and rant about the never-ending crusade against queer text.
I think you just gave the rant, so you're done.
That's just
this was
a
just
mere
a CA.
taste. Can you imagine a day, Thomas, where you decide, hey, we need a certificate authority, and then you delegate that, and then somebody does it?
I have no problem with delegating work. I would be happy to delegate a lot of my work. It's just that I would hold the work to the standard that I hold my own work to.
Dare
So if anybody
Dare to dream, Thomas.
if anybody, yeah, exactly. So if anybody is able to do it to the level that's acceptable to me, I will happily let them do everything that I do.
You know what they say about delegation? If somebody can do it 80% as good as you, it's time to delegate it.
Well, so there is. So first of all, I actually already delegated a lot of my code writing. So for Unimus, a lot of the original Unimus code is still my code, at least in the Unimus core, which is responsible for device communication and device drivers, etc. But I already delegated a lot of that to different people. Just the way you have to do it, you have to review, right? You have to have code review, you have to have quality assurance standards, you have to have automated testing for everything and everything else. And so there is ways to, even if people can't do it as well as you, it doesn't matter that they shouldn't do it, as long as you have processes in place which assure that the end product is of sufficient quality. So, yeah, I have nothing against giving people, delegating and giving people, even if they don't know the stuff good enough, as long as the process assures that the end product is of sufficient quality.
You know what worries me about you, Thomas, is that one day you might decide to take over the world. And
it would be too long of a process.
No. I'm talking.
He would have to do it.
Max.
I don't want that much responsibility. It's too much responsibility. It's too much. Yeah.
You know what? I think it just dawned on me who Thomas reminds me of. And Tom, I love you. No. I know you're going to disagree to a certain extent. I don't expect you to agree. But Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. Because he's so precise. He's so exact. He doesn't waste any of the words that he says. And there has to be a very useful purpose for everything that he does. So you are the Sheldon of the Brothers Wisp.
You don't know me well enough, yeah.
I've never watched the show, so I would know. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm too busy working, Dave. I don't have time for your shenanigans.
I haven't watched TV in forever.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm too busy watching British television. That's the way it goes for me.
You ever watch The Mighty Boosh?
It was just okay.
Yeah, it was all right. Yeah, British humor is a little bit weird, but I still love Benny Hill.
Gotcha.
Can never get sick of that guy.
I play the theme song sometimes when there's shenanigans.
Dude, that theme song is everything. I think we should play that at the beginning of this video. You should just change it from the Brothers Wisp to the Benny Hill theme. Freak people.
You sing it and record it, and I'll play it.
I just need a kazoo, man.
Kazoo. Drop a beat. Here we go. Yeah, I put you on the spot, and you wouldn't drop a beat. I was going to sing the theme song. Oh, Jesus. All right, let's put a bow on top of it. Thomas, if people want to get a hold of you out on the internet, how do they go about that?
Yeah, as I always say, I'm very easy to find. Just Google for me, Google my name. I have a YouTube channel, all the social networks. If you want to find me, you will. And of course, there's always unimus.net. We even have a live chat. So, yeah, that's probably the easiest way. Unimus.net, and you'll find me there.
All right, sweet action. Davey, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Just, you could email me, david@pennytone.com, or hit me up on the Slack channel.
That'll work. If you guys want to find me, I'm greg@gregsoul.com. Or if you want to contact us in general, it's contact us at TheBrothersWISP.com. Also, Facebook.com/TheBrothersWISP. All that good stuff is from Mikey, and that's also a decent way to interact with us. I would say the best way to interact with us is via the Slack, the patron-only Slack. So a lot of the content we talked about actually came out of the Slack, only it's just scratching the surface. There's only just a tiny taste of all the stuff we talk about in there. Patreon.com/TheBrothersWISP. You sign up, and then I will drop you the invite in Slack within just a few minutes. And you can get on there and chat to your heart's content, ask any questions, add comments, feedback. It doesn't matter how green you are, you have value, and there's things you are an expert in, and you will be able to help other people as well as get help for yourself. And join in the conversation. And join me in ridiculing Dave whenever possible.
Please do.
Get
I love
in there
it.
and jab. All right. So thank you guys for listening. Questions, comments, please keep them coming. If you want to hear something different, if you want us to change, we welcome feedback. I don't get enough of it from you guys. I need constant validation. Constant validation, people. All right. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
I think, just as a last note, we are still looking for people from enterprise environments and specifically fiber, and also non-US regions, Asia, South America, if you want to talk about your network, if you want to talk about enterprise stuff, if you want to talk about fiber, we would love to have you as a guest.
Yeah. And that's talking to you, Ollie, who does fiber to the home all the time, and you are European of some sort. I think he's not Swedish. I made a joke about him living in an IKEA. I think he's like Norwegian or something. All right.
We
Thank
talk
you, guys.
about equipment and methodology, so sit back and start learning. Lighting up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.